Well, good morning, Amy. How are you today?
I'm excellent.
I thought, we have been traveling around Minnesota for a couple of days, and it seems like everywhere we go, we're getting some sort of symbolism or some sort of sign from Prince. What have you seen since we've been here?
I've seen t-shirts, music, rocks.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we would be doing, one vlog an hour away from here, and all of a sudden on a corner we hear Prince playing on our radio and someone wearing a Purple Rain shirt on the street riding a bike, and we're just like, holy cow. So today we decided, hey, we went to Paisley Park, we've done Purple Rain, today let's go see where it all started for Prince, the homes he lived in. I love your sweater, Amy.
Thanks.
Do you want to say Daze with Jordan the Lion begins now?
Daze with Jordan the Lion begins now.
So today we're going to start our vlog where it all started for Prince, his first home. He was born at Mount Sinai Hospital in 1958. We're gonna go to his very first home that he lived in. And I just have to find some way of getting myself in with this beautiful mural. Isn't that great? Well, here we are. First stop of the day, Prince's home. Apartment 203, when he was born, this is where he lived until New Year's. He was born June 1958. Now, interesting story is that his father was John Nelson and his mother was Mattie Delashaw, and his father had been married before. And apparently, before the late 70s, the rule or the law in Minnesota was that you had to be divorced for 6 months before you got remarried. So Prince's mother and father, actually, Prince's father had been married before, recently got a divorce, and so they went to Iowa and got married and then came and lived here. And then about 9 months to the day from when they were married, Prince was born, Prince Rogers Nelson. Now, how he got that name was that his father had a group with his mother called the Prince Rogers Trio. And they didn't have any real success, but his father thought if he named him Prince Rogers Nelson, his last name, that maybe his father's dreams would come true through his son. And so that's how Prince got his name. They didn't live here very long. Like I said, he was born in June, and they moved on New Year's Eve, actually, of that year. They moved over to this next house that I'm going to show you. What's interesting is that Prince would, as he would grow up, he would not end up liking his name Prince and would go on to go by the nickname of Skipper. So this is the address of the second home of Prince, 915 Logan. But this is not the house. This was a house built in 1995. However, it's important to stop here because Prince lived here from the time he was, I guess he would have been, 6 months, 7 months old until he was 7. And he would have started playing music here. He would have started messing around on the piano and learning the piano, learning several instruments. His sister Tyka would have been born while they lived here, and when his parents decided to move away, they actually kept this house. Well, they kept the house that used to be here that was demolished, and they rented it out. So they bought a new house. We're gonna go over to that house next and continue to own this house until 1970. So this would have been one of the more dominant homes in Prince's life. This was what was known as the 8th Avenue house. Prince's parents moved into here in 1965. Now, it's a little confusing because I said that his father owned the other house that we were just at until 1970. He apparently didn't own it, but he was listed as an occupant or as that being one of his residents, but he had double residence at that time. So it's weird because they moved here in 1965 and Prince lived here until late 1971, 1972, his mother and father got a divorce in 1967, and Prince's mother ended up remarrying in 1970 to a man, and they ended up living here until Prince moved them into one of his homes. So they lived here, I believe, until 1985. And this was a pretty dominant house because Prince lived here from the age of, you know, from 1965, he would have been 7 years old until 1971, 72. He would go off and eventually live with his father then. But his mother and sister and cousin Chaz can all remember him avidly playing the piano here, honing his craft, working on music. This is probably the home that he most developed that attraction and that future in music at. Pretty cool to see. Now, when Prince's parents got divorced, his father moved into an apartment building, and eventually Prince and his new stepfather weren't really getting along. Prince didn't really like this living situation, so he would go over to the next apartment that we're going to and live with his father for a time. When Prince's parents got a divorce, his father moved here in 1970 and lived here until 1972. And Prince would end up coming to live here, like I said, because he wasn't getting along with his stepfather. So his pal Andre could remember coming to visit him here and Prince playing music inside this apartment. But the place just wasn't big enough for them, so his father started looking for a house, and we're going to go to that house now. So in 1972, an early teen Prince and his father, John Nelson, would buy and move into this house. But Prince didn't live here very long. Probably not even a year, they say, because he and his father ended up having a falling out. And so he had a couple of different places he started to live at. But what's interesting is that his father lived in this house until the mid-80s, and then Prince had a house that we're going to see at the end of the day. Well, we'll see where it was. It was known as the Purple House. His father ended up moving in there. But what's interesting is that this house at the time of Prince's death was owned by Prince. Now, the last I heard, Prince's sister, Taika, owns this house, or did own this house when he passed away. She ended up inheriting it. And when he left here, one of the places that he moved to is he had an elderly aunt that lived near his junior high school, and so it was said that Prince would go and stay with her and help take care of her, but he would also go live with Andre Simone. So here we are. These two houses are very, very, pardon the pun, instrumental in Prince's career, because this is where he moved in with Andre Simone. He said he was about 16, 17 years old, and he kind of realized once he moved out of his dad's place and his aunt's place, he was kind of his own boss. He wasn't really going to have to listen to anybody, so he moved in here, shared Andre's room with them, and they formed a band. And then Prince moved to the basement, and they had all their band rehearsals, so they kind of say that the Minneapolis sound that Prince is known for would have started here. Also, their bandmate, Terry Jackson, lived next door, so when they would have rehearsals, they would basically bounce back and forth from house to house, and it was at this time that Morris Day joined. He auditioned to be the drummer, and eventually Prince's sound was coming to be. These are pretty much the last places that Prince would live until he would go off on his own and end up getting his own house. So you probably want to see where Prince's house was. in Prince history, it's known as the Purple House. So let's go visit that. Pretty cool. This place is really cool to see. To know that they would have worked out the music, the funk. He would have had some of his first songs in here. Very cool. Now this house is over in the same town where he built Paisley Park. There's the sign for Chanhassen. So this was the plot of land that was once the famous Purple House. Now, this was a house that Prince recorded quite a few things in. He recorded Controversy, Sign of the Times, 1999, and his neighbor said that he used to drive his motorcycle up and down the driveway practicing for Purple Rain. Now, the Purple House that used to be here is no longer here. What happened was about 15 years ago, while Prince was still alive, he chose to tear the house down and the house that he moved to after this and had built. He tore both places down but kept the property. Now the people who live here now, they were such big Prince fans that they wrote to him and asked if they could buy the property at one point. He never responded to their letter, but once he died, the estate contacted them and said, "We found your letter, Prince kept it. Would you like to come and take a look at the property?" So they came out here. You can see, if you look over here, there's a lake. It's lakefront property. And they came out and looked at it and they said they immediately wanted it. There was very little sign of the Purple House being here, a little bit of foundation, but he had completely removed the house and everything. Now when Prince moved out of the Purple House, he had a whole new estate built and he actually had his dad move into this place. So what's cool is that when they bought the property, they also got the original gates that were part of the house when Prince lived here. And so you can see the gates right here, even though they're open, you can see the peace symbol and the heart. Amy, what do you think of that story?
It's really a cool story.
Prince kept their letter and they're ultimate fans. So
Yeah, that's really neat.
I saw online a lot of times people come here and make a stop, that they'll come out and start talking to them and recount how great he was. I actually saw online where some of the neighbors said Prince was so friendly, he used to attend their kids' graduation parties when he lived here. He lived here for the first half of the 80s. There you can see the homeowners just came in and said hello to us as we came in and said, feel free to take all the pictures you want. As I understand it, this whole black fence that surrounds the property was originally here when he owned the Purple House. So I'll put in a picture of what the Purple House looked like. It was actually, there was a hillside right there and it was built onto the hillside. But they removed a very small portion of the fence in the back, I believe, but they kept all this, of course. And from the opposite side inside the property, if you look, you can see that there's a little purple lock right here. So some of the famous songs that he recorded on this site were 1999, Little Red Corvette, I Can Never Take the Place of Your Man, and he recorded songs for Morris Day and the Time and Apollonia here on this property. Alright, since you can't see any of the property for the next place that he lived in, that was the last place before Paisley Park, and if you watch my vlogs, you saw that Amy and I went to Paisley Park, but we want to end it somewhere special. You can see this north side mural over here on the side of this building, and look who's in the O. Prince. Look at that ring. the eye. That's a very young Prince right there. Very young. So what we want to show you, looks like they're doing a major renovation on, but we can show you the original part because if you look beyond the sign, that brick section is what we're looking for. Our last stop on our Prince tour today. As we walk along the side, you can see some of the side doors because this was a theater. So this building right here is the Capri Theater, and on January 5th and 6th of 1979, this was known as the Paradise Theater, and Prince played his very first solo show. Went on to be one of the biggest, most influential acts of all time. Starting here, here's a picture of him performing on this stage, 1979. He would have been 20 years old. Well, that's it, my friends. I hope you enjoyed our Prince tour today around Minneapolis. Have a great night. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you all next time. Have a great night, and goodbye.